Grand rising, everyone. Natalie coming to life. Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. I finally got a new mug that I love. It is like kind of like my old one. But look at how beautiful this is. Reminds you of the Southwest. And it is a potter from Colorado. Yay. Okay. Anywho, let's get started. Great coffee today. So I had an amazing journey. I am taking Personal Identity Soul Purpose. It is a course for my master's program, but really an experiential course, more of a course where you go out and you actually apply and practice some of the concepts that we're going through, which is what I do as a practitioner and also teaching esoteric wisdom, right? How do we practice what it is that we're being taught? How do we apply it to our life to see if it works, right? We have to know if it works. If it doesn't work, if it's not functioning in a way that's going to support us to our higher purpose, then we have to adjust, or we get to adjust, because it's not driving us in the direction that we need to get to our higher purpose. So literally this class is amazing, and I had to do a soul quest being go out into nature and just sit with myself and ask what my soul desires. What happened and what turned out is my warrior's code, which is awesome because, most people think of a warrior like someone who fights, which, yes, you protect. And that's what a warrior does, is it protects the innocent or protects the individuals who might be in harm's way. And that's through maybe skills of, I want to say battling, but being able to use martial skills, basically. And so that's, to me, what a warrior is. Now, everybody has their own definition of what a warrior is. But when I was out there, really understood that everybody deserves safe passage. So really learning that we as individuals, we as people carry too much weight for what? Why are we carrying all this weight? Why do we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders? Why is that a common theme? And mostly it's because people believe that they have to fix something. And that's really ego at play, right? So part of what I was reading last week was just from the Emerald Tablet, Alchemy for Personal Transformation. And speaking of dissolution or learning to let go is, and it's a chapter 12 in the book. So if you ever guys want to get the book and read it, it's pretty awesome. If not, I'm going to read it. Good morning, whoever's on Facebook. Dissolution. So part of it is allowing ourselves, they call it that elixir, right? That they say it's like water, but it's really like when we burn to the ashes. And it's basically talking about the ego. Our ego is a construct of our programming into survival. Our ego develops to survive. That's what it's there for. It keeps us alive. So everybody has one. So people say, I don't have an ego. Well, you would be dead if you didn't have an ego. Ego is the thing that wants us to survive, but it can also get tricky and do other things to us besides. It gets a little weird about what survival means for it, because it's afraid of death. It's afraid that if it dies, if the ego dies, that's it, it's final. Whereas the soul or spirit don't have that distinction. They're immortal, so they're not afraid. So the ego is sort of afraid sometimes of our soul. It's afraid of our divine purpose. It's afraid to even tread those waters, because why? Because then it'll die. But the ego won't die if you work with it and you allow it to just sort of quiet itself. And that's kind of what meditation tells us to do, kind of slow down the ego's desire to be in control. You could see it that way with meditation, right? Because the ego just wants to be center stage. This ego wants to be driving the ship all the time. So, and sometimes it's hard to let go of that and allow the soul to do it. The soul is not about doing anything. It's just about being. dropping into the essence of who you are, which then becomes not easy at all. Sometimes it's very hard just to be, right? We want to get up, we want to do something, we want to move, we're thinking, our bodies are constantly in motion. So, and that's a good thing, that's not a bad thing. Again, the ego was there to keep us alive. It's for survival, it helps us survive in this material world. However, in order for us to transcend that and overcome it, we have to be able to quiet or minimize the ego. We have to be able to reconstruct the ego's way of seeing the world. We have to allow the ego to see the world through a new perspective. And that's the hard part, because as we go through that, it feels like death. And that's where the death and the rebirth, right? The rising of the phoenix, or into the ashes we go over and over again. This doesn't just happen once in our life. We're constantly dying and rebirthing all the time. We're not the same person all the time. We constantly shift and change. So when we talk about dissolution, so I'm just going to read, for someone who has or is with a well-developed ego, dissolution can be a frightening experience. The purpose is to reveal what we are most trying to conceal, our souls. And that's what I talked about just a second ago. To expose the soul requires letting go of control, breaking habits, allowing feelings to flow, and not hiding from emotions. Those buried emotions include our deepest pains and our greatest fears, and that powerful combination can produce some frightful monsters. It's scary when good morning, Dean. It's scary when individuals, right, start, or you as an individual, or me as an individual, start to look at those deep emotional traumas. It's not an easy task. Again, we have courage and strength to get us through that. Courage and strength, and brave. We've got to be brave to go through it. Again, that's fire energy. I've talked about that in other podcasts, what that means, the fire energy. And we see it in the lion or the Leo in astrology, right? We could see it in that. We could also see it in tarot. We see it in the elements, where fire burns it up. Yet monsters confronted during dissolution are illusions, products of our own mental landscape. Nevertheless, the ego feels that unless it keeps strict control, all the monsters it hid away so carefully will suddenly break loose and overwhelm it. So again, it's not like you're trying to open up the floodgate of the internal demons that we hold inside. That's not the point of alchemy. Now, it could happen. So for someone who may be going through something called a Kundalini awakening, and the reason why some of those individuals who go through Kundalini awakening sort of have issues as they go through it is because as they're going through the Kundalini awakening, they're opening up and all the monsters inside of them are attacking the ego, right? And these are internal demons. These are illusions. They're not real. They're made up. But we sometimes, when we open up that floodgate, it can be overwhelming to the ego and to ourself. And we start to freak out when that happens. Good morning, Radio Projects. We start to freak out if we do that. It's too much for our bodies to process all of that information. And some people lose their minds. You can lose your minds in this work if you go too fast or do too much. People want spiritual awakening all the time. They're like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And literally what they're doing is they're overwhelming the ego, and the ego wants to survive, so it's going to fight against you. You don't need to fight with the ego. You can work with your ego. Remember, your ego is going to fight to survive. And sometimes what will happen when we start to fight is that we get sick in the body. And we have all of these issues within the body. So someone who lives in the past typically has liver issues. They typically will be alcoholics. That's kind of how it goes through the emotion. Most alcoholics live in the past, and it becomes a liver issue. Believe it or not. It's pretty interesting how it all interconnects, because our emotions get held in the body in some way and we're not able to release them. So we have to be able to release those emotions and work with the ego, not against it. So sometimes it's talking to your ego and saying, yeah, okay, like I do. I'm like, okay, you need to calm the F down, ego. You need to take the back seat right now, right? Because it wants to control. If it does and it controls and you get older and older and you start hiding away more and more of your demons and trying to suppress them, when you do have what we call a spiritual emergency and all the demons come flooding out of you, you can actually go crazy. It would be too much. It's almost like it starts to cannibalize and eat away at you in a way that's not good, right? Anxiety, and I can't sleep at night, and all of these voices in the head start to come out, all these patterns and stuff, and regret, and whatever it is that the fear, everything that a person's living with, right? So we have to learn to overcome them slowly and work with the ego. And our soul is there to support us, right? We have our soul there to support us through the process because the soul's not afraid. The soul is immortal. It's not afraid of death. So as we allow the soul to seep into our conscious mind, right? As we allow ourselves to open up and allow those energies to arise within us and work with them, we will work to transform them into something beautiful. We take what is dark and maybe feeling not so good inside of us, and we learn to work with it for the betterment of our body, our spirit, ourself, our physical body as well. So we can actually heal ourselves. We have the ability to heal ourselves through this work. Our mind, because our mind is, but so let's just look at multiple personality disorders, right? There are individuals who have multiple personalities. And there have been case studies that they've done where they've looked at individuals who have different energies that take over their bodies completely. Their physiological body, it changes as these different archetypal energies enter their body, literally. Like an energy will enter the body and that particular energy will have diabetes and the body will have diabetes, but once it leaves, it doesn't have diabetes anymore. There are studies that show this. So literally we have the power to overcome a lot of our sickness that we have inside of us without any kind of medication or anything. We literally can think it away if we knew how to process it properly. That means that we have to heal, right, what's in the subconscious mind. So so looking at the mind, we have the conscious mind, we have the subconscious mind, we have the unconscious mind. The subconscious mind, and the distinction between the two, when we have the unconscious is unconscious. It's like, I don't know what I don't know. It is that black hole. It's the void. It's the everything and the nothing. Then there are things that come out of that, right? That come into the conscious mind, and we look at it and sometimes we don't know what it is. We don't understand it. We can't comprehend it. We can't process it. We push that into the subconscious mind. So we can see the subconscious mind as something that we have seen or experienced but didn't like, or we wanted to suppress it, and we put it in the back of our minds and we pretend it doesn't exist. But the point being is that it does, and that it plays out in our life. The subconscious mind will play out in our life and we don't even know it. So when we're running programs, right, and we're continually going in circles and circles and we're chasing our tails, trying to figure out why we keep experiencing the same things over and over again, right? We can go to different groups of friends, or we can move to another part of the world even and see that the same patterns that existed where you were before exist when you move along. Why? Because the subconscious mind is actually a program that's running in the background. It's still there. I mean, we have technology now. Technology and computers were designed off of a human brain. They were designed off of the subconscious and conscious mind. They're just programs running. So if we saw ourselves as a program and we understood it from that perspective, which is easy for most because technology is so rampant, is that we can see that the subconscious mind is a program that's running in the background. Think about your phone in that regard. Your phone has maybe these apps that are running, and for some reason your phone is running slowly and you don't know why. And then you start to look and you say, oh, these programs are still running in the background. Even though you're not using them, they're still there. But they're slowing down the phone, they're slowing down the processing. So, what happens when we have all of these things in our subconscious mind is our processing slows and we're not able to move forward. We're not able to process the information that's important to us because we still have programs running in the background that are hindering our progression. So we get to look at that. And it is, again, there's different terminology for all of this stuff. I know Radio Projects, you were playing that stuff about, I think it was game theory. I kind of looked into it just a little bit, which was cool. I thought it was really cool. Try to listen to stuff that when I can. I'm so busy. It's really hard for me to get on others. But I enjoyed it. And I started to look up game theory myself just to kind of see what was going on. But when you think about it, right, it's looking at the patterns that exist. There are patterns, right? And I've talked about this before in terms of how do programs run and how do the patterns run. We literally, right, when we talk about the programming, we literally are a pattern. And if you look at it from even the planet itself, if you go above the sky in a plane, you're going to see patterns that continue over and over again, right? You're going to see the patterns that exist. These patterns play out over and over again. So, and I didn't listen to the rest of those lectures. And Radio Projects, you're more than welcome to send them to my the YouTube channels that you're listening to my email, spiritandbrew@gmail.com, so that I can listen to them because I was interested. So I did my own little research. That's what I do when I find something interesting. But there's different terminology, and the terminology it's kind of almost what it does is it misdirects people. Language was created as a way to express the perception, the way that we see the world. And it was designed so that we can even shape the world. Language shapes, and you guys have heard this a million trillion times, right? Go read any book and they'll say what you think is what manifests. I mean, there's memes, there's tons and tons of information about this. But here's the deal. Within each language or construct, there are misdirects as well, because who's controlling the information? So the key here being you get to understand what's real and what does it mean for you. Now, not just real in your mind, but when you apply it, does it do what it says it's going to do? Those are my big questions. So game theory has its own way of describing what I just described, right? It has its own way of describing the process in which it's used. Okay, I got all sorts of directions with the podcast. Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Cool that you're investigated. Oh yeah, no, I don't just take anything just for face value. I kind of get mad when people start talking because I'm like, where's their misdirects? What are they saying? Is it real and is it true? And is it just conceptual and theoretical, or can it be applied and practical and useful? Those are the main questions I ask when I follow anybody. I don't just follow blindly. And this is something that I love to teach people that follow Spirit and Coffee. If I were a sorcerer, okay, there's a distinction there. I'm not going to get into it right now, but if I were a sorcerer, I would be saying I have the only way, follow me, but I don't. I know nothing. I'm a light worker, and I'm here to remind you guys that there are two ways to look at this world, okay? And I'm going to say two ways. There's three. Let's just say there's three ways, right? First of all, there's the scientific way. So we can look at life through science, which is what we are in right now. We're in a very patriarchal, scientific mind mindset way of looking at the world. Most people can't see past that. They've been programmed so far into it that they don't know any other way. Okay, so we're so programmed into this way of perceiving the world that we don't even understand what intuition is anymore. We are so far removed from our own intuition. Okay, now intuition isn't the ultimate truth either. So we can look at life through the perspective of intuition and applied science, which is we trial and error. Okay, and science does that. However, we don't apply it because we're looking at it from the external. We're looking at applied science as what is happening externally. We're not looking at what's happening internally when we do that. So when we're looking internally, we're applying what the science says. And we're saying, does it work or doesn't it work? So we take these models and theories that other people have told us. Everything we've ever learned is a construct of what other people have passed down to us. They have said, this is the process, this is the way, follow. And we said, okay, that must be the way. And we follow. Now, sometimes we take a process and we're like, that shit doesn't work. I've tried it a million ways. It's not working. You've got to just be honest with yourself. If a process isn't working, it's like not working. And that's okay. So the ability and what spiritual alchemy tells you is that you have the ability to find your way. Not in some theoretical woo-woo way. This is not woo-woo. I mean, it could be. It's part of it. But the other part is, how do I apply it to my life? How do I make it practical? How do I make it work? If you had a car, you had all the parts, and theoretically when you did something it was supposed to work and then it doesn't work, then that doesn't make sense. It's not working, right? So how do we start to construct it? How do we say, oh, well, I need this part to the engine or that part to the engine to make this car go? See, we can live in theory all day, and that's what science does. It gives us theories. Nothing is exact. People will say, well, science is factual. Not necessarily. It's theoretical still. And it's still missing one of the biggest things, and that's our own intuition and our ability to apply it to our life. Really apply it to the internal essence of who we are. So there's 2 ways. Now, 3 ways, and this is probably the most all-encompassing way. I don't want to say it's the best way, but I'm going to say Natalie is opinionated. The best way to do it is to integrate both. Right now, there's a new paradigm that's arising, and that paradigm is integral life systems. We have life systems, or there's holism, or there's integral practices where we integrate all of it together, where we take the science, where we take the intuition, and we put them together into one thing to sort of generate this new way of being, this new way of existing in this world, this new language that can create. And we take that language to integrate it into our life to actually, like game theory said, which I like, is to play the game. Now, there was one thing, and I want to talk about game theory since you are on here, Radio Projects. I like to shift gears, but because I'm open to dialogue. From my understanding of game theory, I started reading it from the economic perspective. Now, I don't know that it goes outside of the economic perspective. I started reading articles. Peer review articles from, they use it for war. They use it to predict how the masses actually are going to behave in certain warfares and different techniques and decision making. They do it for decision making and how. Now, the guy that was talking, and there was a part and I clicked off because I had to go, and he said something really important. So I really would appreciate if you would send me those videos, because he talked about a new geometry, sacred geometry, which is where I'm at, working with sacred geometry. But what he was talking about, right, in the game theory was, people that play the game are more successful than the ones trying to figure out how the game was made. And that's kind of the distinction I got from when I was listening. So if we saw it from the perspective of science is trying to figure out how this world was made without actually playing the game. Okay. So Kind of interesting, right? Because that's really what they do. They get so far into trying to understand how everything was designed that they forget to play the game. Now, some of those individuals ended up getting murdered and killed, the ones that are trying to figure out the design, and in deep trouble. I say you could do both. I don't believe that it needs to be one or the other. That's the problem with society and the duality. It's either this or that. Well, I don't believe so. I believe you can understand the design and you can also understand how to use it. You may not understand the entire design, but you know pieces of it. You have enough information to play the game. So there's a game that we played, the red black game. The red black game, which I think was probably designed, I didn't find out, and I will, was probably a construct of a game theory. The red black game, I've played it a million times with some individuals, and I won't tell you how it works in case you ever get a chance to play the red black game. I don't know if you have radio projects, if you've even ever heard of it, but the red black game is a strategy game, and it's red and black. So there's teams of red and black, and you have to gain points, and there's certain ways to gain points, but it's designed to see how individuals will react based on what other teams are doing. So you can't find out what the score is. I don't recognize it. Okay, well, it's probably part of game theory. I'm 100%, almost 100% sure that it was a construct, although I didn't know anything about game theory until you brought it up. I've heard it, never delve into it because I didn't care. But I care about that more than I care about flat Earth. Why? Well, because you can actually apply game theory to your life and get results. I can't apply flat Earth to my life and get results. It doesn't matter. See, that's how you play the game, right? You try to understand. So we could talk about it as a game. We could talk of life as a game. And that's another way to use language to sort of construct your life and your reality and shape it and mold it. There's different ways. That's why spiritual alchemy to me is the umbrella overarching design, because there's spiritual alchemy is the process from each individual place. Like you radio projects live in a different location than I do. So you have different play is a good metaphor. You have a different surrounding area. You have different vegetation, you know, your life, your circumstances are different where you live. So it's not going to be exactly the same. However, you have the tools necessary to create something. You have all the tools still. So the way you play it's going to look different than the way I play it. Because why? Because I live in a different place, a different location. I live in a desert, right? The circumstances are different. If someone lived in a jungle, they're not going to see life the same way that someone in a desert lives, because it's just two ways of living are totally different. But they can still play the game, right? They still have that opportunity. So looking at it from that perspective. Now, another thing with game theory is that they talk about agents, right? Those are so here's what I'm going to say. Look at the process that you're working with. Whatever process it is, if it's game theory, if it's Christianity, if it's Buddhism, if it's Dungeons and Dragons, like I don't know, that's a process. People tell me they're like, "Do you play Dungeons and Dragons?" Just based on the way I talk, I've never even seen it, and I've never played it in my entire life, which is funny. So, but when we start to look at this, whatever process that you're working with, right? Start to look at the language. That's the most incredible. You have to know the language. If you don't know the language, you're not going to get anywhere. Good morning, Logie. Good morning, Kabuchi. Good morning, QVS. If you don't know the language, you're not going to get very far. You have to understand the language. That's critical in playing a game or playing the game. In game theory, they talk about agents. So I think agents would be sort of the top of the hierarchy, but I could be wrong because I don't know much about game theory. I just read a little bit, and what I understood is that there are these agents. Now, what that reminds me of is like Matrix talk. I think about Agent Smith and how they utilize agents to get what they want done. You could apply this to, believe it or not, the pandemic. They've used game theory for the pandemic because they run these modulations, these simulations in their processes. Okay. So what they do is they run these simulations to see how the population is going to react in certain situations. That's game theory. And then they try to make decisions based on that. What do we do next? What is our strategy? But the one thing that they can never account for, and if you looked at The Matrix, watch The Matrix, the movie, it's a pretty damn good movie. There's one thing they can't account for, and that's the choice that we make. There's choices that they don't know that we'll make, and what that's called is the trickster. Now, if we look at, so we take a bit, if we look at the hero's journey, in the hero's journey, there's the trickster. And nobody can ever account for the trickster because that's what happens as a result of, they just don't know. They behave in a way that they never accounted for because they're not that creative. They're so left brain, they're so busy looking at the left brain that all of a sudden this new creative energy shows up that they couldn't account for. There's mythology behind it, and you guys can read it yourself. And I can't remember, I have the book and I can't remember what book it was. But it did talk about the myth of the trickster. So read up on the trickster. The trickster is actually in pretty much every movie. A good trickster would be the Mad Hatter. The Mad Hatter is a trickster, right? You kind of never know what the Mad Hatter is going to do. He's just kind of erratic all over. Or the hare and the fox, the hare being the trickster. You know, there's the trickster is in every one of these stories, and it plays out even in our storyline on the planet. On the earth. Believe it or not, Donald Trump was the trickster, probably one of the biggest tricksters we've seen in history, doing all kinds of crazy shit that everybody's like, what is this guy doing? Some people loved him, some people hated him. Regardless, if you looked at the trickster and you looked at that archetype and you read about it, you would see he's just playing a role. See, everybody's got a role to play. When you start to understand who's playing what role, you know how to navigate through it. You become sort of like a chess, right? It's like a game of chess. You guys are in a game of chess. If you understand whose roles are what, you'll know how to move your chess pieces. That's game theory. You are the game of chess. Now, are you a pawn? Are you a knight? What are you? So for us, if you were looking at it from a strategic perspective, how do I move forward? How do I move through the game? That's just that's one process. That doesn't mean it's the ultimate process. Guess what? There's other processes like Buddhism. We can go through that. Different language, different way to describe playing the game, different way to describe playing life, different way to describe how we move through the world. Christianity, different language. So you're hopefully getting the point here. You can win at a process. You can transcend the soul. You can overcome the ego. You just have to know what game to play. You got to understand which process is going to get you there. And sometimes it's taking from many different processes to create your own. That's what people do over and over and over again. And then these lost souls are looking at other people to do their process, and they're putting them on a pedestal like gods and saying, oh my God, they have the ultimate way. No, they have their ultimate way. Guess what? You have your ultimate way. That is going to look different. It's not going to look the same. That's why people are like, well, I don't get it. I went to see this guru and nothing happened. Well, yeah, because that was his way. And if he was a good quote unquote guru, he would have been teaching you that you have your own. You have your own way. Sometimes it takes designing our own language. Just like me. I mean, I feel like people have to decode me all the time because they're like, wait, I can go from one subject to the next, to the next, to the next. And they're just like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. But I do. I know exactly what's going on because I know me. So you have to know you, and then you have to understand how to apply these languages or these processes to your life. That literally will help you to get to the stage of transcendence. It's a lot of work. Not so easy, is it? But I'm trying to put it in a language or a wording that at least gets people to where they go. So, yes. So, Podbean is a game. Tell me how it's a game, Radio Projects. I don't know what that means. I don't even use it as the game. I just get on and talk. I don't even think I'm using it the way I'm supposed to, or the way it was designed to, anyway. How is it? Is it a game, really? It looks like a game. You get like these awards and you can get all these cool things. I don't get all kinds of stuff. I don't get like awards, and you gave me some ribbon. I don't even know what that means, like gifts, or I don't even know what all that is. Like, honestly, you never really delved into it. I'm just here. Hosts get points with gifts. Oh, how do you get gifts? I don't even know what that is. Like, I don't, honestly, I use Podbean just to talk to people, not to be popular, obviously. I'm just here to give information, and I just found Podbean and I just created it a year ago. I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest with you, and I just put it together and I said, here you go, now listen. And there. But I think I'm trying to put together Patreon for videos for people to purchase videos if they want energy exchange. Oh, well, I give a lot of energy, but I don't seem to get a lot back. I'm playing the game wrong. Natalie has no idea how to play the Podbean game, apparently. She's created her own game and it's not winning in this particular construct of it being hilarious. Which, oh well, it's all good. I'm here to serve, so I don't know. If I get gifts, cool. If people don't give me gifts, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll set it up someday. Who knows? Sends a gift. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the gift. That's so nice of you. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with the gift, but thank you. Do I just supposed to do something with the gift? Maybe you could, Radio Projects, maybe you could send me an email, tell me how to maneuver through this thing. I don't have a clue. That's hilarious. Is it like popularity contest here? Just accept it. How do I accept it? I'm working it out. Yeah, it's hilarious. Is it like, I'm like, is Podbean supposed to be like a popularity thing? If it is, I'm probably losing the battle here. Be open to receiving. Ah, I am. I'm open to receiving. I'm always open to receiving. I am abundance. Trust me. One thing that I am is abundant. I understand the energy of giving and receiving, but I don't ever receive anything on here. I mean, thank you. I did receive something. You gave me something. That's amazing. But I just didn't know how to use it. Anywho, um, maybe I'll figure it out one day. But I'm just here to give and serve. So there you go. Um, Obviously, not very popular topic here necessarily. We get very few people on this podcast, which is fine. It's quality over quantity, in my opinion. What people are taking away is more important to me. You serve by receiving also. Absolutely. I'll receive if people give me. I'm just saying people don't give me stuff on here. I give a lot, but I'm not receiving a whole lot on here. I don't get gifts, I guess. They do now. Ah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the gift. Totally awesome. You're doing a beautiful job, my sister. Oh, thank you, Christina. I appreciate it. So there you have it. Tons of billions of processes. Make sure you understand the language in each one of those processes. That is going to help you. If you're playing life like a game, then you can actually understand how to win. Now, I want to say win-win, not win with casualties. That's not the point. No. But to be able to win so that you can actually co-create. That's a better way to look at it. Co-create. Find the process that allows you to co-create in harmony with your surroundings, not win the game by slaughtering other people. There's no need for that. Of course, people think that way, and that's part of it, but you got to be understanding that when there's people like that out there, you don't need to slaughter back and protect and serve, but you can use your skills to maneuver through. And that's where you become very open and aware of how to maneuver through those hardships, right? Those hard points when people are trying to slaughter you or crucify you or judge you, whatever it is. You know how to maneuver through that. Okay. Find your process. You have it. It lives within you. And when you find it, life becomes magical, mystical, miraculous. Okay. So there you have it. Thank you. Thanks for the gifts, Radio Projects. You're awesome. I appreciate it. Totally appreciate it. There you have it. So I love you guys so much. Hopefully this was helpful. For those who just got on, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it. I think you guys will get a lot out of it. There you go. And I think I'm going to read up some more on game theory a little bit at a time. So, and you said Radio Projects that it was the Donald Hoffman video. Okay. He was talking about sacred geometry. I don't know if you could just he said the new sacred geometry. I get downloads, right? You know, people talk about downloads all the time. I get information and it comes in the form of sacred geometry. That's how I get my messages. Some people get different messages, right? Some people get animal energy. Some people talk to spirits, whatever. My gift that I receive is sacred geometry. So the new sacred geometry would be interesting to hear about because I have some charts and downloads that I want to figure out how to utilize in order to support in the healing of humanity. How do we heal? How do we regenerate? I like the word regenerate rather than heal. There's a distinction there. Sorry, I'm going to go on a little further because I did watch this video where these doctors were talking about regeneration and healing. And they say that we regenerate our organs until about the age of, and I can't remember, I'm just going to make up a number. No, I'm not. It's good. Let's just say we're kids, we're children. And after a certain point, we stop regenerating, we start healing. Healing speaks to decay but regeneration means that we get a brand new organ or brand new cells. So certain parts of our body regenerate, like the liver, but certain parts of our body heal. So if we can learn to regenerate, right, then we can live a healthy, fruitful life. I don't want to live forever because I'm okay with the fact that there's life and death. I don't need to be immortal in the flesh. But to be able to regenerate is pretty cool. So let's look at how do we regenerate. Maybe the sacred geometry can help with that somehow. Who knows? I don't know. On more about that later. And apples and how apples give us an idea about what time means. Apples and time. Interesting concept. Okay, so I love you guys. Have a great day. I'm going to be out of town all week, so I don't know if I'm going to get on here. But thank you for your gifts, Radio Projects. I totally appreciate that. I think I'm going to figure out the game of Podbean, apparently. There's a game here, which I never knew. I'll learn it one day when I'm 100 years old. Okay, have a great day. I love you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.